Today we have a wonderful guest and dear friend of mine, Dr. Heather Sandison, New York Times bestselling author of the book Reversing Alzheimer's Disease. She has reversed Alzheimer's in her medical clinic, and she published her results in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease, the top journal in the field of Alzheimer's research, and she wrote a New York Times bestselling book about it, and she shares with you in our conversation today what causes Alzheimer's disease, some of the causes of Alzheimer's disease, and what you can do to avoid it. Specifically, she shares with you foods to avoid because they increase the risk of Alzheimer's, behaviors that are really great for your brain, like sleep and exercise, and a certain type of exercise that she talks about. And she even shares with you some of her favorite supplements that are great for the memory and great at reducing the risk of Alzheimer's disease. So here is a colleague and a very dear friend of mine, a wonderful woman, wonderful scientist, Dr. Heather Sandison. I am so excited and delighted for today's interview. I am with world-renowned researcher and Alzheimer's expert, New York Times bestselling author, Dr. Heather Sandison. She wrote the amazing book, Reversing Alzheimer's Disease. If you haven't gotten this book, you are missing out on some of the best education there is in the cutting-edge science on how to prevent Alzheimer's and even reverse Alzheimer's. And she published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease, which is the top journal in the field, her research on how she was able to reverse memory loss in older adults. It is fantastic work. And not only that, she's just a lovely human being. I'm honored to call her a friend. Dr. Heather Sandison, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And so we were talking off camera a little bit. First of all, you've done such great work. Like, just for people who have made a contribution to humanity, you and your mentor, Dr. Bredesen, have done such wonderful things, not only for my parents' generation who are able to prevent Alzheimer's disease because of your work, but also our generation, because we're not going to get Alzheimer's if we're willing to follow what you have in your book. So sincerely, just thank you for your work in the world.
Thank you. I don't really think of it as my work, right? It's Dr. Bredesen's work. And then it's really the work of the caregivers and of the people who are willing to put in the effort, the time, the energy that it takes to make these really important lifestyle changes and take responsibility for our health as we age. It's not easy. And I'm so inspired by the families who come in, who I get to work with, who I get to guide. Really, I get the easy part of the work, right? Of reading the papers, understanding some of the science, and then relaying that to interested people who are willing to do the work. They really are the pioneers and the people who I think are doing the hardest work to show what's possible for those who are aging and worried about the risks of Alzheimer's and other dementias.
And so I first want to start off with this big idea. Then I'm going to ask you about how you were able to reverse memory loss in your study. For some reason, so I think the recent data is 66% of older Americans are concerned about memory loss. It might be higher than that. And only 20% or 25% think there's anything they can do about it. And so most people think there's nothing they can do about Alzheimer's, about other forms of dementia, and that's just not backed by science. Can you share your perspective as a medical professional about what the current science shows about preventing Alzheimer's and reversing Alzheimer's and what's possible?
Yeah, absolutely. So I hear what you're saying, how so many people, they still come into my office and say, my neurologist said there's nothing I can do.
I'm sorry, that boggles my mind that a neurologist, it's their gosh darn job to know this. I'm clearly I get upset about this, but that's amazing to me that a neurologist is telling their patient the wrong thing.
It's really frustrating, and it engenders this message of false hopelessness. You'll hear Dr. Bredesen say this. Is we used to be accused of spreading false hope, right? And yet now we can see that the science has caught up to show that we can very confidently say there is not only not nothing you can do to protect your brain health as you age and even reverse symptoms of cognitive decline, there is an overwhelming amount that you can do to support your brain health as you age, no matter what stage you're at, whether you're in prevention, you're in the early stages, or you're even in the throes of severe Alzheimer's. There are things you can do to optimize cognitive function. And so how do I know this? Okay, so the research. I want to break down kind of a decade of research here. So Dr. Bredesen in 2014 published one of his initial papers, basically a case series. So the way that the research world works is you want to first take things from the clinical side, like, oh, we're seeing Alzheimer's patients improve. That's not supposed to happen. So here's a few of them. Let's publish them. Let's kind of put our flag in the ground or stake in the ground and show people that this is possible. We're not saying exactly how it's happening, but we're just saying like this is happening. And then fast forward in 2022, his group, led by Kat Toops, published a feasibility trial. They took 25 participants over 3 sites with MoCA scores down to 19. So this is the Montreal Cognitive Assessment, which is a way to put a number on where someone is in the spectrum of cognitive impairment. So a 30 out of 30 on the MoCA, on the Montreal Cognitive Assessment, is perfect. As you go in the direction of 0, you have worsening cognitive decline. At 0, you're essentially nonverbal. And so they took participants down to 19. 26 and above is normal. So 19 is measurable cognitive impairment.
So most of us walkers would probably score about perfect, or about 29, right? Most healthy adults are scoring 30, 29 on this.
26 and above. Yeah. And, there's some math problems. Not everybody's good at that. Some people, don't recall some words because they're distracted. You can miss a few and still have normal cognition.
19 is substantial. That's
19 is significant. Yeah. And so they took a 9-month intervention, 25 participants over 3 sites, 3 different doctors, and took participants with MoCA scores down to 19. But so it wasn't so low that they were really severely declined. They had what we call mild cognitive impairment, even though it's not particularly mild. Some people won't be working anymore. It's impacting their day-to-day life. And what they showed was that 84% of those participants improved their cognition within those 9 months. 84%. That's a huge amount. That is way more than half, right? It means it's more likely that if you put in the work, if you do the work, you will improve your cognition. Now, what did they do? It's Dr. Bredeson's approach. And this is what we did in the clinical trial I published a year later in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease. In August of 2023, we had a 23 participant trial. So again, a feasibility trial. There was no control arm. It was just an intervention arm. We're trying to say, is this possible? This is a complex intervention with older participants who have cognitive decline. Can we even do this? That was the question. And so we took 23 participants and they had MoCA scores between 12 and 23. So they all had they generally had more severe cognitive impairment than Bredeson's group, led by Kat Toops. And we only had a 6-month intervention. So we had a shorter intervention, more severely declined participants, and only 23 versus the 25. And what we showed was that 74% of our participants improved their cognition in those 6 months. So
was this over COVID? Was this over the COVID time, or was this?
It was, yeah. We started recruiting in February of 2020, so we had to stop, and then we started recruiting again in September. And we had some people. We lost some people. We lost about 28%, I think, about around 30% of our participants that we recruited. We lost to follow up. Some of that was due to COVID. It was kind of a high rate.
If people could improve their cognition during COVID when people are afraid and the news is all scary, and that you can't hug people, and you have to stand far away from people in line at the grocery store. Like, that's really impressive. That's a hard time to get healthier. Most people got less healthy during COVID.
This podcast is brought to you by The Reversing Alzheimer's Disease by Dr. Heather Sandison. This is New York Times bestselling book. In this book, she shares with you how she was able to reverse Alzheimer's disease, memory loss, and dementia in her clinical practice without the use of prescription drugs. I've actually visited her clinic. It's really, really interesting, the things she's doing. She shares with you the science and the exact details of what she did. This book is a bargain at whatever they're charging on Amazon. I think it's $24. So pick up your copy on Amazon, do your brain a favor, and then share it with your loved ones.
It's amazing and wonderful. And we see this consistently when people show up for 6 months and they really put in the effort. So what did we do, right? So we looked at the 6 components. The way I organize it in my brain and in the book is the 6 components of brain health. We're looking for imbalances in the system, too much, too little, in the wrong place at the wrong time. And then what we are trying to achieve is this homeodynamic balance, right? The body isn't the same in the morning as it is when you're going to bed. The body isn't the same in the winter as it is in the summer. But how do we create this homeodynamic, resilient balance in the body so that we get the optimal function in our brain? So we're looking for imbalances in toxins, nutrients, stressors, structural issues, signaling, and infections. And what we also want to do, so foundationally, so we do testing on all of those things, but then foundationally what we're doing is an organic ketogenic diet, plenty of vigorous exercise, including both strength training and aerobic training. And usually we want to really emphasize dual task exercise, where we are strengthening our brain, we're building that muscle at the same time as we're exercising our body and getting movement. And then We also stress management practices like meditation, mindfulness, prayer practices. We really emphasize that. And then sleep, really good, high quality sleep. A minimum of
Is that an Oura ring I see on your
Yes.
I got to feel. I like it on the middle finger better. It looks better on the middle finger, I think, than on the pointer finger. So you mentioned to me how important sleep is, because one night's poor quality sleep, you're cognitively impaired. And you've noticed that in your patients, as soon as you improve someone's sleep and go quickly going on the ketogenic diet, both of those really have a big difference on the brain. You gave a list of six imbalances. Could you say those again slowly for people taking notes at home? I'm sure they want to get that list of 6 imbalances they want to be checking with the medical tests.
Yeah, toxins. And that includes 3. Do you want me to go into some of the detail here?
Sure. Yes, please.
So toxins, there's 3 flavors. I think of them like ice cream, right? So there's heavy metals, there's mycotoxins, and there's chemical toxins, including glyphosate, or the chemical used in Roundup, and petrochemicals, parabens, phthalates, styrofoam, that kind of thing.
And plastics, would that be in there?
I don't know how to measure for microplastics yet. I don't know that we have a direct consumer, or like if we have testing that's available. I have not seen that yet.
Yep.
But we definitely are looking for petrochemicals, things that end up in the water, and hopefully that'll be available soon. Like a fat biopsy is the gold standard for testing for a lot of these fat-soluble toxins. So the ones that you can test in urine, we look for. And then we're usually putting people on a detox program. And with my patients, if you're looking at someone over 65, they've had a lifetime to accumulate these things. And sure enough, we see them in almost all of our participants. Well, we saw them in 100% of our participants. We saw some level of toxicity.
Really? 100% of participants had toxins. That's sad.
I think 100% of the planet has toxins, right? Because it's an umbilical cord blood. There are these parabens and phthalates and PCBs and like the microplastics, the forever chemicals, those are in all of us because we live in a toxic world. So what do we do about that, right? We have our things that we can do something about, and then the things that we have no control over, right? When it comes to dementia, there's a really clear line here, right? Like we can't change the year we were born. We can't change if we're male or female or what the gender we were born with. And then we can't change our ApoE status. So we don't want to spend a ton of time worrying about that. We can't change that there's these ubiquitous toxins in the world.
ApoE status is our genetic status regarding our Alzheimer's risk.
These are non-modifiable risk factors. But what do we have control over? And that's really what's empowering and where we want to spend our time and effort. And so we can make sure we're having a bowel movement every day. We can drink plenty of clean filtered water and out of glass or ceramic or stainless instead of plastic. We can make sure our liver. Oh yeah, green juice. I love it.
This is matcha. You're a big fan of matcha.
I'm a huge fan of matcha.
This is matcha with MCT oil and some acacia powder. Acacia powder is a soluble fiber that feeds the gut bacteria. So this is very filling, great while doing intermittent fasting. And MCT oil, as you know, is great for the brain. We can talk about that a little bit later. But I can have this and fast my brain feels really good in the morning. And I can fast for a couple hours, and I just feel really sharp and good. And it tastes lovely with a little bit of monk fruit sugar in here.
I do my matcha with some collagen powder and then an MCT lion's mane theanine creamer that I love. It's so
really MCT lion's mane and L-theanine in a creamer. What a world we live in! Oh my god!
I know, so good every morning.
Can you imagine the advantage that you have over somebody else in your profession who's going to Dunkin' Donuts in the morning and getting their non-organic coffee and a donut, and you're having matcha with fluoride-free water or reverse osmosis water that doesn't have glyphosate in it, and you got L-theanine and lion's mane and MCT. Like, can you imagine your competitive advantage over anyone else you're going up against?
Well, I'm a naturopath, so this is very normal in my world.
Oh my gosh, I hope that becomes normal standard for humans, because
me too.
It tastes good. It's really healthy. And I think it was Jordan Peterson's daughter, Michaela Peterson, who said, nothing tastes as good as good health, as feeling good feels. Right. So people will often trade. And this after Thanksgiving, people did this over Thanksgiving. Close friends of mine said, yeah, I just ate whatever I wanted to on Thanksgiving. I woke up the next day. I had sore muscles. I had sore joints. I felt sick. People will trade their health, short-term health, and which becomes their long-term health, for food that tastes good. And the
best feeling in the world is waking up feeling good.
Yeah, when you stop making that trade-off, it's just the world opens up, and then healthy things start tasting good. It's amazing.
I would like to thank our sponsor, Roar Lion's Mane. I was at a conference with Dr. Heather Sandison. I gave her some of this and she absolutely loved it. She said it improved her mood and improved her energy right away. Lion's Mane, great science on Lion's Mane. Lion's Mane improves memory. Lion's Mane improves mood. It reduces stress and anxiety. And best of all, Lion's Mane improves sleep, which is so essential to a healthy brain. Lion's Mane helps people fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, and fall back to sleep. And it even improves REM sleep, increases vivid dreams. Mine is the highest quality Lion's Mane. Right now, you get a free physical copy of the new book, Heavily Meditated by Dave Asprey, when you try my Lion's Mane. This is a $28 book. In this book, you're going to learn how to improve your memory, how to improve your cognition, how to reduce stress and anxiety naturally, how to improve your sleep, and reduce the risk of Alzheimer's disease. $28 value. You get a free hardbound copy of this book sent to you absolutely free when you try my Lion's Mane risk-free. It's risk-free because it comes with an unconditional money-back guarantee. By the way, it's the highest quality, it's third-party tested, GMP certified. So to try my Lion's Mane risk-free and get a free hardbound copy of Dave Asprey's new book while supplies last, go to robertlove.net.
You were going through the list of 6. You went through the toxins and how there's 3 toxins: heavy metals, mycotoxins, which is mold, and then the chemical toxins. And I don't remember if you've gotten on to the next one yet.
Yeah, so nutrients. You were mentioning this a little bit with intermittent fasting. So what we recommend is an organic ketogenic diet. And I don't recommend that anyone's in ketosis forever. So when we're talking about macronutrients, this is our protein, our fats, and our carbohydrates. So I recommend a carb-restricted diet, at least for a little while if you're struggling with cognitive impairment. And really for anyone, going back and forth from ketosis to glycolysis or burning sugar for fuel to burning fat for fuels, our body is designed for that. And so really that metabolic flexibility is going to prevent diabetes, heart disease, and many other conditions associated with aging, right? These chronic conditions associated with poor aging. And so if we can go back and forth, get that benefit of metabolic flexibility, regardless of our cognitive state, we are going to see typically improvements. Now, I notice when I'm ketosis, I wake up earlier, I get better sleep, I get better quality sleep. I feel more ready for my day. So instead of like kind of struggling to get out of bed groggy at 6 a.m., I'm up and out of bed by 5:15, and I get extra time in my day. And I feel more awake and more alert and just, it doesn't take that extra time to kind of get ready and wait for my matcha to kick in. So when it comes to macros, I highly recommend getting into ketosis somewhat regularly. And if you already are struggling with cognitive decline or a loved one is, get them into ketosis for a solid 3 to 6 months to get the brain healing benefits of ketosis. It is an anti-inflammatory diet. It is a fat burning diet. So you get the detox that's associated with mobilizing fat cells. And then it also seems to improve mitochondrial function in the brain. And you're burning ketones, which is the brain's preferred fuel source. When in the rare kind of research setting, examples where there's both ketones and glucose available in the brain, what we see is that the brain would prefer to burn ketones over glucose, and that it creates less oxidative stress, which is, again, one of these hallmarks of aging when we're in ketosis versus glycolysis. So that's on the macro side. On the micronutrient side, something like homocysteine is a great example. And this is why working with a functional medicine provider, a Bredesen-trained provider, a naturopathic doctor, somebody who can help you understand your micronutrient status, or using something like Function Health.
So that you not a medical doctor who's been trained almost exclusively on pharmaceutical drugs, doesn't understand the current science on dementia prevention, and doesn't want to, quote, waste money on testing, even though, testing is a great value because it provides data to make on which to make decisions.
Right. So in the UK, there's been studies done on homocysteine, and an elevated level of homocysteine, if you've ever had that tested and your number is up over 8, you probably want to talk to your doctor and consider supplementing with methyl B vitamins, B6, 9, and 12, methyl B12 and methylfolate, and potentially some trimethylglycine, some other methyl donors to help to get that homocysteine level down. It's an inflammatory marker, not only for the cardiovascular system, but also that seems to impact the brain and be associated with brain atrophy as we age. And you and I might get the same amounts of B12, but have different levels of need based on our genetics, right? So this is not about having enough vitamin C so that we prevent scurvy and our teeth don't fall out. We're not talking about like the RDA, right? So that we're avoiding getting really sick. What we're talking about is optimal levels so that we get optimal function and we get recovery and repair.
I just want to highlight this. Such a really important point. The RDA, the recommended daily allowance by the government, some of them haven't been updated since the 70s. It's basically the amount of vitamin C to not die from scurvy, as you said. It's not the optimal amount. And Ben Fuchs, who's a pharmacist, he calls it ridiculously deficient allowance, right? So the RDA is just enough to not be deficient, which is not what we want. And you mentioned...
It's just how there's like genetic differences. And
thank you. Vitamin B. I knew it was going to come. So vitamin B, some people are like, you need to have B12. Yes. Especially if you're vegan, you got to supplement with your B12 because it's hard to get that out of non-animal based products. But most people don't understand that you don't just want B12. You want a whole B complex, as you mentioned, B6, B9, B12. You want all the B vitamins methylated, and that's going to help with homocysteine because they're involved in making neurotransmitters as well. So if you're supplementing with a B12 vitamin, that's try a B complex instead. You're going to get all the benefits, and it's basically the same cost. And so I'd really try to steer people away from just B12 because it's not going to be nearly as beneficial as all the B vitamins that are methylated for optimal brain function.
Yeah, the B vitamins play well together. That's for sure. The antioxidants, magnesium, there are polyphenols. There's so many nutrients and micronutrients, minerals that are necessary for our bodies to optimally function. And many of us have become depleted for one reason or another because of high levels of stress. So as we kind of talk through these 6 components of brain health, having high levels of toxicity, having high levels of infectious burden, this requires more resource. It requires more glutathione. It requires more B vitamins. And so we don't need the RDA anymore. What we need is actually much higher because we've got to deal with all of these other things. And so if like our body is busy at work, taking out the trash and building proteins, building cells. There's so much to be done. And if we're depleted in our nutrients, we're going to put things on the back burner, right? And that's when toxins accumulate. That's when infectious burden accumulates.
And this is why I think that the injury is so dangerous for those over age 65. So my grandfather actually wear his ring. It's been a really important part in my development. He was a door-to-door salesman. He was selling vacuum cleaners. At age 79, he took a fall, and then shortly after he developed cancer, and then after that, dementia. He worked as a dry cleaner for so many years, and it thought the chemicals were eroding that was harmful. Plus, he dropped out of school at age 14. His father left home, and he had to take care of his family, so he went to work. So he had a low education, which is another risk factor. But it started with that fall. That fall was the beginning of the end, and that fall took so many resources to repair, right? So, and then those resources weren't available to suppress the cancer in his body, and those resources weren't available to keep his brain healthy. And so that fall, that's why falls are so dangerous. They take so much of our resources, and then as we're older, we need those resources to stay healthy in other ways. And so, for those of you out there over age 65, please make sure you're not standing on chairs in the house to reach something or reaching overhead. You can easily get a shoulder injury. You're wearing shoes in the house with a back to them or slippers with a back to them, so you're not slipping and falling. So dangerous to fall at an older age because it's harder to repair yourself, harder to recover, and that they need those resources just to stay healthy at that point.
I would like to thank our sponsor, Optimizers. They make great supplements that are good for your brain and good for your overall body as well. My favorite supplement that they make is Masszymes. This contains digestive enzymes that help break down fat, protein, and carbohydrates. I love taking this in the morning with my bulletproof coffee, which has a lot of fat in it, so it helps break down the fat. And I like to take this at night before my largest meal, which is dinner, to help break down the fat and protein and carbs from my biggest meal. If you'd like to try this, you can try this risk-free and get 10% off. So to get that, go to buyoptimizers.com/love, and you can try this or any of their great supplements and save 10%.
You also mentioned some really stressful events that your grandfather went through, right? And having a fall or an injury is one of those. And stress is something where we need, again, this balance. Not too much, not too little. So we talked about toxins, we talked about nutrients. Stressors are something where we want to have enough exercise, right? Talk about fall prevention. What we need is this concept of the hormetic effect, right? Where we're stressing the system so that we create more resilience. And exercise is a great example of this. A ketogenic diet, like a fasting mimicking diet, is another great example. Oxygen therapy, hot and cold therapy is another example. But exercise is, I think, the most crucial when it comes to brain health. It's movement. We've got to get enough movement. Turning into a couch potato and just kicking your feet up, having happy hour every day in your retirement is going to lead to brain decline. And we need to stress that system both physically and cognitively. And so I put exercise in this stress category because it's like you need to push against something. You need a reason to get up and out of bed in the morning. You need a purpose and meaning. And then doing balance.
Needs so important. Those that have meaning and purpose have reduced risk of cognitive decline. And so a lot of people who are retired miss this. So get an animal, volunteer, spend time with your children, find something that's meaningful for you to do. Because if you don't have meaning and purpose, why do we get out of bed in the morning? And people ask that question, why am I here? I'm retired. What am I supposed to do every day? Just play tennis? And so please find meaning and purpose. It's so important for your health. It's such a big deal, especially amongst those who are retired.
Yeah, something to look forward to. This comes from Becca Levy's work. She wrote the book Breaking the Age Code, and she published the research showing that people who are optimistic live 7.5 years longer. And those who live in a society where we relegate our elders, where there's a Confucius society, or the American Deaf community has also been studied in this way, where there's a lot of respect for our elders, and there's an optimistic view of growing older, that we have something to look forward to, that we're going to be revered in that stage, unlike our sort of Southern California culture where it's like youth is the only thing of value. What we see is that people in those societies, in these Asian societies, in the American Deaf community, they actually negate any of the risk associated with ApoE4 positive status. It goes away. And that people in those communities actually increase their cognitive function as they age because they are expected to.
Amazing. And as far as optimism, there's great work by Carver and Shire showing that those who are optimistic heal faster from injury, they heal faster from cancer, so many different benefits. And someone said I forget who it was. It might have been Alan Watts, who said it's absolutely crazy. No, excuse me. It was Kahneman and Tversky. I think it was Amos Tversky who wrote the great book by Michael Lewis. They are two Nobel Prize winning economists who are actually psychologists from Israel that worked at Princeton. And Amos Tversky said, being pessimistic is insane because you suffer twice. One, you suffered the very first time because you think bad things are going to happen. So you suffer psychologically then. And then if it does happen, you suffer again. So you've doubled any suffering. If you're optimistic, you avoid that first suffering, and 80-90% of the time, the bad thing doesn't happen. So you don't suffer the second time. But being pessimistic guarantees suffering because you experience that negative psychological state at least once, whether or not the thing happens.
So crazy. It's a choice, right, that we make every day. And another piece around stress is having some mindfulness practice. We see the Kirtan Kriya, which is a 12-minute program. You can find it on YouTube. It's the Sa Ta Nama. This has been studied, and there's meta-analyses showing that doing that 12 minutes a day for both caregivers and people suffering with mild cognitive impairment has improvements in memory, the reason we're showing up here today, but also in the length of telomeres, in blood sugar regulation, and immune function, and of course, in our mood and depression and anxiety. And so doing that totally free, just 12 minutes a day, like everybody has time for that. Everybody can afford that. And it makes this really impactful change, this profound change at the cellular level.
Would you say that again, please? I know a lot of people are going to want to look that up on YouTube. Can you, you said it?
Yeah, here, I'll spell it. It's Kirtan, Kirtan, Kriya, which I always get wrong, but I think it's Kriya.
IYA. And then just search that on YouTube and just listen to that and close their eyes and just practice that. And that has tremendous health benefits. You mentioned immune.
Really impressive. And I love these really pragmatic, simple, easy tools that we can use. So then another piece associated with stress is sleep, just getting enough sleep. So 7 hours minimum of sleep per night. And then I do like using a tracker, like we talked about our Oura rings, using a watch. The Fitbit is another one, or the Apple Watch. The Apple Watch needs to be charged. So make sure a lot of people charge it at night, and so they're not using it.
I don't recommend the Apple Watch. Have you seen people with it? It get text messages all day long.
Right.
I was listening at the symphony, and the person sitting next to me, his watch kept going off. And I thought, why are you allowing this? Like, it's a Saturday night. Like, you got to be able to disconnect so you can enjoy what's in front of you. It's insane to me. I mean, I think it makes sense to give it to your kid. If you don't want to give him a cell phone, you can say, please come home for dinner. But the idea of us receiving text messages all day long, I would find that stressful. I want to be able to focus here with you. I turn my phone off or I turn on silent so I can be here with you. So I don't recommend that. I recommend, something you don't need to think about that's not going to be beeping at you all throughout the day.
Yeah, I like the ring. It's my favorite. And so you can see how much deep sleep you're getting and how much REM sleep. And we recommend 90 minutes of REM and 60 minutes of deep sleep per night. And if you're not getting that, don't worry. Don't let these numbers keep you from sleeping. Just do what you can. Breath work is one of the quickest things I've seen help with deep sleep, and also with resting heart rate and heart rate variability. Those are other things that you can track on the Aura Ring so that you're getting that feedback, and you can do these interventions and say, okay, hey, when I eat a bunch of gluten and have alcohol, what happens to my sleep? Or when I take my lion's mane before I go to bed, what happens to my sleep? When I do these interventions, how does my body respond? And how can I do more of the things that improve my sleep and less of the things that make it worse?
I would like to thank our sponsor, Microingredients. Microingredients has really high quality products. All of their products are third-party tested, which means an independent company has tested them for quality and safety. So you know you are getting the highest quality products. They have a great collagen. This has a great anti-aging benefit, helps reduce skin wrinkles, great for your skin, hair, and nails. MCT oil is terrific in coffee, great dairy replacement. And this is also great for the brain, can even help with weight loss. Their blueberry powder, their organic blueberry powder. I'd love to add this to my smoothies. And their newest supplement, their curcumin supplement, is fantastic. So a good curcumin supplement will have 1,000 milligrams a day of curcumin, and it will have black pepper. So this has black pepper, and this has 1,000 milligrams of curcumin, plus some other things in it, and MCT oil as well, which helps with absorption. Research shows, I've been taking curcumin for at least 5 years. I'm going to take curcumin as long as I'm alive until the science changes, because this is so good for your brain. Curcumin helps reduce the accumulation of amyloid plaque in the brain. Curcumin improves memory in double-blind, sleep-controlled studies. Curcumin reduces inflammation. It slows down aging. Is one of the safest, most powerful supplements you can take. And so if you want to get this from Microingredients, go to Amazon and then use the coupon code RobertLove at checkout, and that will get you a really nice discount on curcumin.
And so for sleep, you mentioned a new friend of ours. I just got to meet him at a conference, which is great because I've been reading his book for years. It's Michael Bruce. He's got a new book coming out, Sleep, Drink, Breathe. He's fantastic. You can see a bunch of free content from him on YouTube. He's the sleep doctor. So if you have trouble sleeping, I've been following his protocol. I've been able to fall back to sleep by not getting up to use the bathroom in the middle of the night. So like most adults, I wake up in the middle of the night between 2 and 5. And he said, Robert, if you don't need to go to the bathroom, just stay in bed. You'll fall back asleep much easier than if you get up, because that increases your heart rate, your blood pressure. That's hard to fall back asleep. His work is great. This book will be coming out soon. So by the time this is released, his book will be out. He's fantastic. He's got a lot of free information on YouTube. If you are having trouble sleeping, he's one of the experts in that field. And sleep is so important because just one night throws you off. And then if it becomes chronic, it's as bad as a nutrient deficiency. I think it's worse than a nutrient deficiency because chronic sleep problems just impairs pretty much every system of your body.
The structure is the next component that we want to talk about. And obstructive sleep apnea, I think if we were to aggressively look for that, to test for it and treat it in patients who are suffering with mild cognitive impairment, early cognitive decline, I think that we could prevent a lot of Alzheimer's from happening. Because what's happening is when we have obstructive sleep apnea, we're not getting air into our lungs. And so we're depriving our brain of oxygen. And essentially, it's like mild brain damage every night. We are getting into hypoxic states, and we're also depriving our brain of that sleep that's so crucial to stress. So basically, what happens during our REM sleep is we're consolidating memories, and we're also taking the stressful bite out of things that might have happened. Like if you had a tense conversation with somebody during the day, at night, you process that so that when you remember it tomorrow, it doesn't cause your cortisol to spike and start being toxic to your hippocampus. There's a softer edge to it. Now that happens in REM sleep. So we get this emotional processing happening then. And then in deep sleep, what we get is this lymphatic rinsing of the brain. And that's when things like amyloid plaque, I'm sure everyone's heard, we all have cancer cells in our body, but our immune system takes care of them, right? We all have amyloid plaque in the brain. Only 2% of people between infants and centenarians don't have any measurable amyloid. When it becomes plaque is when it's a problem, right? When it accumulates and creates structural change in the brain, that's when we have this memory loss that's associated. But we all have some degree of amyloid in the system. We get rid of it so that it doesn't accumulate during deep sleep. And if we have obstructive sleep apnea, we never get that deep sleep. So we need to be addressing that.
Sorry,
Now,
I didn't know that. So if we have obstructive sleep apnea, we never get deep sleep?
Yeah, well, depending on how often you're waking, you're basically preventing yourself from getting into REM sleep or deep sleep because you're constantly, the brain is hypoxic. It can't go to sleep because it feels starved of oxygen.
Oh my gosh. So not only are you not sleeping well, but you're not getting any of the really restorative sleep. Oh my goodness. That's a really darn big deal.
Oh, it's a huge deal. And I can't tell you how many patients I've had who are thin women with cognitive decline, and they literally have gone into the sleep study. And someone has said to them, I can tell by looking at you, you don't have sleep apnea because they're not male, they're not overweight, they don't say they snore. And the next day I get the report back, severe obstructive sleep apnea. So I caution you, do not make an assessment about whether or not someone has sleep apnea based on how they look. They need a sleep study. And one thing that's happened since COVID, the technology has really improved. So there are these watches that you can wear at night. So they can send you an at-home sleep study kit.
Awesome.
And that is a high-tech but wonderful way to get information. Now, it's still not the gold standard. The gold standard of sleep studies and sleep medicine, it happens in an overnight clinic where you go in and you get terrible sleep, but they just want to get one sleep cycle. And then you have to figure out how you're going to get home sleep deprived in the morning. I know it's a horrible, awful chore. And a lot of people can avoid that. If you rule in sleep apnea, so if you can get a diagnosis of sleep apnea with the watch at home and then get treatment, and all of that is covered by Medicare if you're over 65, if you can get all that done, I know that's a chore too, but it is so well worth it. Now, if it's negative on the watch, there's still a possibility. It does not rule out sleep apnea. So there's still potential that there could be apnea. So if you're waking up tired in the morning, or you're struggling with cognitive decline, or you snore, or for some reason your sleep is interrupted, maybe not for urination, but you're waking up frequently at night, get a sleep study. Sleep is profoundly impactful on brain health. And so you have to be aggressive, you have to be assertive, and you need to advocate for yourself in this regard, because a lot of people will go to primary care providers or neurologists who will not mention this as a factor.
If you or someone you love has Alzheimer's or another form of dementia, I want you to know there is hope. Alzheimer's is preventable, and it is even reversible. In fact, we are reversing Alzheimer's in my medical clinic here in Florida. My partner and medical director is Dr. Josh Hellman, a medical doctor trained at Harvard who specializes in preventing and reversing Alzheimer's disease, and we are reversing Alzheimer's in our patients. If you'd like to learn more about working with us to both prevent Alzheimer's and even reverse Alzheimer's and reverse memory loss associated with other forms of dementia, we would love to hear from you and send you some free information so you can learn what we are doing and see if it's a fit for you to come down and work with us in our clinic. We also work with other clinics around the country to help patients both prevent Alzheimer's as well as to reverse Alzheimer's and reverse memory loss associated with dementia. So if you'd like to learn more, go to brainpowerclinics.com. Go to brainpowerclinics.com and then enter your information. We will send you some free information, and then we hope to work with you, if we can be helpful to you, to help you prevent and reverse Alzheimer's disease.
By the way, Dr. Sanson's given us thousands of dollars of information that you can use to save you a bunch of doctor visits. She's outlined this in detail, so not outlined, but written this in detail in your book, Reversing Alzheimer's. So please get that book. It's a fantastic investment in your health and your family's health. What are some of your top supplements that for people that are interested in a healthy brain that you like to recommend to patients?
Well, I love your lion's mane. I think you've done a really great job getting a high quality, potent, and a good dose, a therapeutic dose for mood, for cognition, and for sleep benefits. I take your lion's mane personally, get benefit from it. So really appreciate that. I also love Qualia Mind, which I took some of it this morning in advance of our conversation. So Qualia Mind is another one that I am a big fan of. And this one is, it's a nootropic blend. It now contains a little bit of lion's mane, but I think taking some extra is helpful as well. Fish oils, vitamin D, if you're not on a blood thinner, if you can add the K2 so that it's also helpful for bones. And then, so lion's mane, Qualia Mind, fish oils, vitamin D with K2, and then probiotics, the gut-brain connection being so important to cognitive function. I think probiotics, or it kind of, if you have gut issues, maybe magnesium, if you're not having a bowel movement every day. I have the doctor in me wants to go, well, so what's going on with you? Like, what do we need? Do we need to support your gut so that your brain can be supported? Do we need to support inflammation? You can So much of this is individualized. It really depends on who you are. And I think there are stacks of supplements that you can take just kind of out of the gate, but really don't miss the opportunity to identify some of these risk factors that we can do something about. So having a one size fits all, like I sort of reject that. And also this idea of, okay, what do I do first? If you're already suffering with cognitive decline, do all of it. Do as much as you can. Dive in fully because we're asking for a miracle. And so we really need to pull every lever that we can. And so start the supplements, do the detox, understand what toxins you're exposed to, understand if there's infectious burden, treat that, get up and over that hump. The way Dr. Bredesen talks about it, he says, and if you've heard him say this already, I'm just going to reiterate because it's such a great analogy of like, think of your brain as a country, my brainiston. Right. And if my brainiston is at war and you are protecting and defending against toxic invaders, against infectious invaders, you are using so much resource over there that you can't get into that rest, digest, and heal state, into that regenerate and recuperate phase. And what we want is that to increase that synaptic connection. And we don't do that when we're in fight and defend mode. And so what we want to do is resolve the toxins, resolve all of the infectious burden, get the sleep, and then shift so that our microglia are going towards protection, regeneration, not attack and defend. Do it all.
Do it all. It's not just one. It's you got to have a good diet. You got to get good exercise. You got to get the toxins out. You got to get good sleep. And supplements can help as well. You really need to do it all if you're going to prevent Alzheimer's and especially going to reverse cognitive decline.
Creatine.
Love creatine.
Creatine, melatonin. I mean, there's so many things we could talk about you and I could talk for days about all the things that we can do to protect brain health. It's always fun. Such a pleasure, such a privilege to be here with you.
So you'll be listening to Dr. Heather Sandison, one of the world's leading experts in reversing cognitive decline. Her New York Times bestselling book is called Reversing Alzheimer's. It's available on Amazon or also at Barnes & Noble. I think Barnes & Noble is still around at this point. They haven't been beaten yet. So get this book. It's a $23. This could be the best investment in your health and your brain health. It is fantastic. I have 2 copies. It's fantastic.
Hopefully they're the signed ones.
Plus, I have a signed one. I got that special. So, Dr. Sandison, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Thank you for being generous with your time. It's so wonderful to have you.
Big hugs. Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Lev.